It is very important to have a clear understanding of human-caused climate change. Every year, we are extracting millions of tons of fossilized carbon up from underneath of the surface of the earth, and then we are combusting it, and CO2 from that fossilized carbon, known as fossil-based CO2, that goes up in the atmosphere and adds to the abundance of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. CO2 is an extremely potent greenhouse gas, and it stays in the atmosphere for a long time. So the solution is twofold. Number one, we will have to reduce our extraction of fossilized carbon. The second thing we need to do is increase the sequestration and management of our forests, because that helps reduction of the atmospheric CO2. And if we keep our forest healthy and well managed, we sequester more carbon within our terrestrial ecosystem than what we're emitting by burning these pellets. Using wood pellets as an energy substitute is an excellent solution, because it not only displaces the use of fossil-based carbon like coal or natural gas, it also encourages sustainable management of our forests.
Forests of the Pacific Northwest are natural and abundant, and trees just want to grow on the fertile soils and in the temperate climate that we have. As a renewable resource, it'll always regenerate, and if we manage it properly and do so while protecting public resources, we will be a consistent, reliable supplier to the global need for wood products.
Oregon and Washington are respectively the #1 and #3 producing log lumber producers in the United States. And what that means is, with the large amount of log harvesting, we have a large amount of waste left over. And the exciting thing is that's now being not left on the forest floor. It's being redirected into biomass. And so we have a number of companies that are entering the biomass sector and using this product that normally would have just been left on the forest floor.
So when we do active management of our forests, when we're logging for a commercial product or we're thinning for forest restoration or forest health, the saw logs, the stuff that is a commercial size, they come off, they go on a log truck, and they go to the mill. But a lot of what's left over, all of that we call slash, that usually gets just piled and burned. So this material is already going into the atmosphere. We have the same thing when we go to the sawmills. So sawmills are making solid wood products and veneer products, plywood products, and they have residuals as well. So we look at the leftovers from forest management, leftovers from manufacturing. That becomes the raw material, that becomes the feedstock for making export-oriented wood pellets.
So burning biomass in open fires release large amount of chemicals, and those end up in the water that we drink and in the air that we breathe, and that affects our health. So by recovering this material and produce bioenergy products, we are actually avoiding those emissions, and that has significant benefits in terms of human health.
So let's talk about fire, and what does it take to make our forests more resilient to fire? Fires are a growing problem. Fire seasons are lasting longer. Fires are getting more destructive. So part of the solution is removing some of that fuel. In a fire context, anything that can burn is fuel. So working in a forest to remove that fuel, which decreases the intensity of the fire, it moderates that fire behavior when a wildfire does come. That is a proven concept with great efficiency, but it's also a costly thing to do. We have a large landscape that needs to be treated in Oregon. Export pellets play into that because what is removed at this point in time doesn't have a market. It only has a cost. But if we can put a price tag on it and someone will pay to have that material removed because it will go into a pellet that is then sold, then that gives us more resources so we can do more of that work and do that work at a lower cost.
It's important to develop new markets for woody biomass in Washington State and throughout the Northwest because number one, the pulp and paper industry is relying on it less and less as a feedstock. And number two, we have over 2.7 million acres in Washington State alone that are in desperate need of treatment to prevent wildfires. That material has to go somewhere.
So there are three places pellets can play a big role. Number one, pellets can be used in the existing coal-fired facilities. When we put pellets alongside coal, it's called co-firing. The second is dedicated biomass boilers. Now, these dedicated biomass boilers are smaller than large coal-based thermal power facilities, but pellets can be the only source of feedstock for these dedicated biomass boilers. And the third option is smaller biomass boilers that can power hospitals or schools, and that source of energy displaces the existing coal, natural gas, and oil-based energy sources. And finally, pellets are always a good option for domestic heating when we compare that to natural gas.
So in the research, we studied and compared the total life cycle emissions of producing electricity from pellet to the total electricity produced from the coal. So what we have found out is that the total emissions that is produced from the pellet, which includes harvesting of biomass, transporting the biomass to the pellet facility, producing the wood pellet in the facility, shipping it, and then finally burning the biomass in the power plant, to be 90% lesser compared to the electricity produced from the coal. So by 90% emission reduction, we mean that there is 90% lesser greenhouse gas emitted if we replace coal with pellet.
We've had a lot of interest in pellet manufacturing, folks inquiring about doing business in Washington State over the last couple of years. And we actually have two serious entities that are hoping to be breaking ground soon and hopefully up and running within the next couple of years.
One of the greatest struggles we face is the loss of our manufacturing base. There are tremendous pressures on forest lands with population growth in the Pacific Northwest for our working forest lands to be converted to alternative uses. And if we can maintain a strong, solid manufacturing sector and markets for wood products that are grown from the trees off of private forest lands, we can help curb that. We can keep working forest lands working.
Why does it make sense to use the byproducts from Northwest forests as a replacement for coal-fired power? And first of all, it's about climate change. So forests are a renewable resource. The wood pellets that come from management of our forests are renewable, sustainable, they regrow, and they're low carbon. So we have a carbon benefit when we displace coal from using the residuals from Northwest forests. So that makes sense. The other place where it makes sense is that it's an improvement in air quality. So this is a waste product that is currently already put into piles, slash piles, and burned. But when we turn it into a pellet and burn it in a coal-fired power plant, the particulate emissions are decreased. So it makes sense on a climate and carbon level, and it makes sense on an air quality level, and then it makes sense on an economic level in the region to have that additional manufacturing capacity, which would support healthy, sustainable forests.